Hello, BookTube. Cheers. I was out at the thrift shops earlier today here in Vermont, and I found a bunch of books I wanted to show you. It's a mixed bag, as always. The first one is a perfect case of I know better. I know better than to get this book. I have an excuse. I have my reasons. I don't expect any amazing reappraisal. This is Eragon by Christopher Paolini. This is the movie adaptation cover. If you have never seen the movie adaptation of Eragon, it is almost unbelievably bad. It's not as bad as the movie adaptation of Dungeons and Dragons, also starring Jeremy Irons, but it's pretty bad. And the reason that I did it is because last year I read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, the big fat science fiction novel by Christopher Paolini, and I really liked it. It's as simple as that. I really liked it, and that makes me hesitate. It makes me doubt, just a tiny bit, just a sliver of doubt, my earlier estimates of his stuff. Now, I know those estimates aren't wrong. This is a terrible book. I'm sure of it. I think this was 25 cents. Everything here in Vermont is 25 cents. I think this was 25 cents. I will give it another read just to be sure, but I think what is more likely to be true is that this author just got better, that he just grew in his art. And that should actually be a more satisfying narrative anyway. But it was dirt cheap, and I don't have a copy, and the movie cover reminds me of the movie, which is worth a chuckle. It's pretty bad. This next one is something that I have never seen in hardcover. I have only had the sort of iconic trade paperback. Once upon a time, 50 years ago, there was an iconic trade paperback book of this. I loved it. It was, for a long time, the standard work on the subject. It's John Costello's The Pacific War in a hardcover here from Ross and Wade. That might not even be American. This might have made its way here to Vermont from far distant. No, that Ross and Wade is New York. One way or another, this is from the 1980s, and this is his gigantic volume about the Pacific theater of World War II. And there have been many, many books on that subject, including a multi-volume work on that subject by a great American historian, Samuel Eliot Morison. Not to say that John Costello isn't a great American historian, but that it never hurts to have more than one interpretation. Besides, Samuel Eliot Morison, he wrote a 20-something volume history of the war in the Pacific, of the Navy's war in the Pacific. And he changed it, he compressed it into a 2-ocean war, a 1-volume recension of that work that is good. But if I had seen this in any format, I would have grabbed it, so I did. And then this next one is something you've seen me praise before here in Vermont. It's a great work of narrative history. It is full of fantastic personalities. I have a hardcover, but I am filling a bookcase at the moment, and I saw a paperback for 25 cents, so I grabbed it. This is Robert Matthey's Dreadnought. And this is a story of, the title is this state-of-the-art doomsday warship that every developed nation suddenly felt like it had to have, and then you had to have 2, and then you had to have 4, and then you had to have 2 or 4 more than your competitors, than your potential enemies in a war. And it led to a massive arms race that was, according to Massey in this book, a huge psychological part of leading to World War I. And you would be amazed, if you haven't read this book, and you think that making interesting characters out of German financiers of the 19th century is impossible. Not if you're Robert Massey, it's not. This is just terrific stuff, just fantastic. And I saw this, a nice heavy floppy trade paperback, so I grabbed it. Then this next one also has an origin story. All of these books have origin stories of one kind or another. At the very least, the origin story is that I am filling a bookcase. But usually there's more than that. And one of the things that I hauled recently was a big, beautiful trade paperback of Hilary Mantel's novel Wolf Hall, which I read in the excerpt that ran in, I think, the London Review of Books, and said in print that if the rest of the book is as good as this excerpt, it's going to be the best Tudor historical novel that's ever been written, and that it's going to win every award in the world. I was right about that. I was the first person in America to say that. And I loved it. I then got the advanced copy, then I got the finished copy, then I got the paperback, and reread it every time because it has so many layers to it. It is such an intelligent work. And then a long time passed. I read Bring Up the Bodies, the sequel. I read The Mirror and the Light, and knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. Once I read the landscape, the political landscape of the era in which The Mirror and the Light appeared, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was not going to win Hilary Mantel 3 Booker Prizes in a row. I knew that it was not going to do that, even though I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was by far the best book nominated for that prize that year. It was, by a wide margin, almost an embarrassingly wide margin. The only reason it didn't win the Booker Prize for that year was politics. Identity politics, politics of the moment. And I know, this is not the world we live in, but if I had been the winner that year and I wasn't Hilary Mantel, I would have offered her the prize. You can do that. Even with the Booker, you can do that. But I recently found a big, beautiful Canadian trade paperback of Wolf Hall with the cover shows just heavy oak paneling with metal divots in it. A wonderful cover design with the French flaps and the deckled edges. And I decided to reread it pencil in hand and annotate all the stuff that I love and just inhabit the book. And I'm perfectly willing to admit that one of the ways that you do that is to read it slowly. I'm not usually an advocate of that kind of thing here, not only for personal reasons. I read very fast and I'm always eager to get to the next book because time is limited, but also for professional reasons. Because again, there are boatloads of books coming all the time, so you can't linger forever in a swannish kind of Proustian way over every single book. But I got that beautiful trade paper, and I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is just inhabit this book. And when you're reading Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, if you're me, and you should be, then how are you going to think about anything other than The Other Boleyn Girl by Philippa Gregory? That was released in the UK as The Other Boleyn Sister, about Mary Boleyn, the sister of Anne Boleyn, who was, before Anne Boleyn, the mistress of Henry VIII. It's an amazing book. It sold like crazy. I'm not 100% sure that The Other Boleyn Sister or The Other Boleyn Girl was ever seriously considered for any major literary award, but it is really well done. And sort of reinvented the popular Tudor novel for the modern era. It wasn't Wolf Hall that did that. It was The Other Boleyn Girl that did that. I have a copy of The Other Boleyn Girl in the trade paperback with the gilt gold edges. But I was thinking about the rest of the times that Philippa Gregory went back to the Tudor world. And then I was thinking about that in connection with Wolf Hall when I found this thing. Now, this hardcover has been around the block, but I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Not only because I didn't have a copy, but because I have a bookcase to fill. This is the Boleyn Inheritance. And this deals with Anne of Cleves, who's not a Boleyn. It deals with Catherine Howard, who is, marginally related. She's a member of the Howard family, which the Boleyns married into. And Jane Rochford, who is a much vilified character in history. And who, in this book, if I remember correctly, Philippa Gregory tries at least a little to rehabilitate as a hard woman making hard choices in a hard world. We shall see. I haven't read this but the one time. And I am certainly in the mood for Tudor fiction. I am certainly in the mood for that. So if I am out and about, in the bright red truck here in Vermont, and we go to various thrift shops, and I let's say I come across a hardcover copy of The Other Boleyn Girl, or even The Other Queen. The Second Queen is what's the name of the? Is it going to tell me in here? Philippa Gregory wrote a fantastic novel. I'm not remembering the name of it, but I'm not good with names or authors. She wrote here. Let me find out what it is. Can you believe it? It's not in here because it came out after this book. She wrote a fantastic novel about Mary Queen of Scots in captivity. When Mary Queen of Scots was captured in England, she was kept under a sort of genteel house arrest. Contrary to popular movies on the subject, Queen Elizabeth never actually visited her. But nevertheless, she was a huge drain on the household where she lived, and depending on how you read the history or depending on how you read the evidence, was directly involved in a plot to unseat Queen Elizabeth II and have her executed. And I think that book was called the Other Queen, or The Second Queen, something like that. But that was really good. If I find a hardcover of that at a thrift shop for 25 cents here in Vermont, I will gladly get that as well. But this thing, just for the Catherine Howard part, absolutely. And then this next one, it will be something like Dreadnought. It will be something that you have seen on my shelves many, many times. I have a hardcover of this, but I have a shelf to fill, and I found a beautiful trade paperback. This is by Walter Isaacson and Evan Thomas, and it's The Wise Men. And this is a group of behind-the-scenes and in front-of-the-scenes power brokers 60 years ago, more than that, in American politics. We have George Kennan, of course, who I think is still alive at 170. Dean Acheson, who is one of the most interesting, that is Dean Acheson. He's one of the most interesting characters in this book. He's one of the most interesting characters anywhere. You have Chip Bolin, Robert Lovett, Averell Harriman, and John McCloy. Now, of all of these wise men, I know Averell Harriman better than any of the others, but I love this book. It put both of these authors on the map. It made Walter Isaacson into one of the country's foremost biographers. And it's a nice trade paperback. It's not the hardcover that I have in another lifetime. Instead, this will work fine to fill out a floor-to-ceiling bookcase. Then we have a bit of romance. Can't do without a bit of romance. I'm pretty sure that I have hauled this book for you already. Let's check the date on it. The datey poo. 2013. So no, I haven't. I haven't hauled it for you, but I have got it in the mail. I got a hardcover from the publisher. It's long gone. Almost a decade gone. Long gone. But I really liked it. I really like this author, and I'm always up for a little romance. This is Julie Garwood, and this is Hot Shot. And those of you who with discerning palates will recognize right away that that is a Paul Marin cover. Unfortunately, all we're getting is the pout in the cheekbones. We're not getting his sultry eyes or his pomaded hair. But nevertheless, there's no mistaking a Paul Marin cover. And this is a contemporary romance, a contemporary, world of espionage, cell phones, sleek planes, that sort of thing. Not my usual thing for a romance novel, but when it's Julie Garwood, I will take it. Then this next thing, talk about filling out a shelf. You want to find something like this if you are filling a shelf with great things. I have had this many times, and I've kicked myself that I don't have it anymore, that I got rid of it every time. No, I'll be getting rid of this one. This is the complete Sherlock Holmes treasury. This kind of plush, naked hardcover, the red quasi-leather stamp there, plus all of the Sidney Paget illustrations and the double columns all throughout here. Just fantastic. Just fantastic. Happy as could be to find this thing. And one of the things that you want to look for is the quality of the Sidney Paget reproductions. If someone has rushed through the plates, then the contrast will be too high and every black shadow will be murky. Here you can actually see every detail. That picture, of course, is from The Adventure of the Empty House, and that is supposed to be Sherlock Holmes. Very tempting target for Colonel Sebastian Moran, the second most dangerous man in Europe. You want to make sure when you look through something like this, whether it's this hardcover or whether it's one of the trade paperbacks that I have, that the contrasts in the Sidney Paget illustrations are good, that you can see every detail. Sometimes they're not. Overjoyed to find this for 25 cents here in Vermont. And then the last thing here, this is in some ways the find of the day. Certainly this will give me lots of entertainment. This is a Taschen, gigantic, the art house Taschen they do gigantic, beautifully made, beautifully curated, beautifully written art-related books of one kind or another. And I didn't even know they made such a thing as this. This was a $60 hardcover that I got for $10. This is the Bronze Age of DC Comics. And that cover is the famous Neil Adams cover of one particular issue of a Superman comic where Superman his signature weakness is removed. I wonder if they have the famous panel. In that issue, a freak chain reaction invalidates all kryptonite on Earth. All green kryptonite is suddenly invalidated. And there's the famous cover of Superman. He's breaking kryptonite chains. But in that issue, I don't know that they're going to show it here. In that issue, there is an absolutely classic sequence. Well, no, I've gone right by it, so they wouldn't. If it was going to be in here, I would have seen it by now. There's a classic sequence. I've shown it to you a couple of times before. Where after Superman learns that all green kryptonite on Earth has been rendered harmless to him, a thug, a two-bit gangster, approaches him with a box and opens it with a flare because he thinks I've got green kryptonite, so Superman is doomed. And Superman knows that it's not dangerous now. Somehow this goon hasn't learned what the rest of the world knows. So he takes the piece of kryptonite and eats it, and then he hits the guy with his pinky and knocks one cups. Classic Kurt Swan artwork. This is the Bronze Age. This goes from 1970 to 1984, and we'll have a whole bunch of great things in it, including, I haven't flipped through this yet, but I can't wait to do it. I'm going to spend a lot of time flipping through this. This will also have the great oversized crossover events where Marvel and DC actually merged their universes. Some of you who have been reading, loving comics for a long time will remember the surreal experience of the first of those issues, drawn by the great Ross Andru, in which Superman meets Spider-Man. And the writer of that issue, I forget who it was, Jerry Conway or Roy Thomas, or whoever it is, the writer of that issue makes the only editorial choice that you can make when you're going to do an event like that, which is just to say, New York's a big city. We've been here, both of us have been here all along. Instead of Crisis on Infinite Earths or merging realities or anything like that, it's just New York's a big city. I've heard about this guy. I've just never met him before. I like that. Here we have a Wonder Woman cover on the back. This is a delight to find for a fraction of what the original cover cost was. So there you have it. Just a thrift shop run here in small town Vermont. So we have the Bronze Age of DC Comics, the real comic company, the home of Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, The Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Aquaman. Then we have a complete treasury of Sherlock Holmes in a sturdy hardcover with beautiful Sidney Paget illustrations. We have Hot Shot by Julie Garwood, a contemporary romance novel in hardcover. We have The Wise Men, a classic of American biographical study. We have The Boleyn Inheritance by Philippa Gregory, which I remember being even more whittled and heartless than The Other Boleyn Girl, which is a pretty heartless novel. Then Dreadnought by Robert Massey. All sorts of great anecdotes and stories about the men who were shaping the world as it was hurtling towards war, and they all knew it. Then we have The Pacific War by John Costello, about the Pacific Theater of World War II. And finally, Eragon, Christopher Paolini, his breakout novel, which he did when he was all of 16. And boy, does it show. But I shouldn't prejudge. I'm going to give it another try. Who knows? There might be elements in it that I saw in his latest book that I missed in this first one. It'll be interesting anyway. Even if the book isn't all that good, it'll still be interesting. So there you go. There's a nice mail haul, a nice book haul for you. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.